Hi, everybody. This is People of Substance by LemonSkies, and I'm thrilled to welcome my friend and guest on today's show, Nick Ellinger from More Companies. Nick, I've interviewed you a number of times in the past, so I'm really excited to revisit this conversation.
Good to talk with you, Olga. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Nick, I'm just going to dive right in.
Sure.
You and I have known each other for a while. You've been in the nonprofit sector back when we talked about integrated marketing, when you aligned your email timing with your mail, and that was very cutting edge. We've evolved to omnichannel marketing. So I'd love to hear from you. What does omnichannel mean today?
Well, today it's really expanding in three directions. It's expanding in channels, it's expanding in coordination, and it's expanding in attribution. And so in channels, I am old enough that I paid for my first digital ads by faxing in an insertion order. So it's been a hot minute, and back there, digital was its own channel, just digital. Now there's this multiplicity of channels within digital. Of course, influencer marketing wasn't there at the time. And you look at someone like Winterberry Group and their breakdown of media channels. You know, in 2024, they broke out CTV from video. They broke out mobile gaming. And so there are constantly these channels coming into the space. Influencer marketing, I think, is a key one for us. Texting is a key one for us. Not the text to give we used to have, but a more modern texting program. And those channels are new and exciting, and there's great opportunity there. So that's one expansion. It's expanding in coordination. In order to be really omni-channel, you have to be able to break down a lot of those silo walls that we keep talking about. And that's one of those things that we often talk about in sessions and use the buzzwords for, but it's really difficult to operationalize. And so we had a speaker at one of our innovation summits who had her entire marketing department, instead of channel by channel incentives, their incentives were then tied to their overall fundraising goal, not which channel did best, but what they all achieved together. You still need that channel expertise, but that's that type of recognition that says that what works here, what will work there, that we can take digital ideas and put them in mail, and mail ideals will work on TV and those sorts of things, and that it all raises boats together. Working with Moore's Neuro Fundraising Lab, we did some work for a client that took 80 different photographs that they had from around the world and assessed them for impact and what were the most urgent and what were the most heartbreaking and which had the highest intent to donate. And they were able to take those photos, roll them into a direct mail piece that beat their control that they'd had for over a decade. You know how hard it is to beat the king of the hill for 10 years. And they were able to take that similar messaging, go to digital, go to CTV, go to DRTV, and make that more effective omni-channel program because they did the research channel agnostically. And then omni-channel is also expanding in the attribution. We're no longer in a world where digital can say, oh, they made the donation online, and therefore it is a digital donation. We see that over half of the donations made because of mail by those under the age of 50 are made through the digital channel. Digital is the channel of transaction. Mail is the channel of influence. And we can better accommodate that omni-channel journey. It's not just the journey that we take to try to get the donor, it's the journey that the donor takes to get to us. And so having that attribution to say, it wouldn't have happened if there wasn't the website, yes, but it definitely wouldn't have happened if there wasn't the mail piece, is vitally important at every step of the process. So omni-channel really is all about being omni, and also to some extent deciding where you're not going to play. You know, More does not have a TikTok channel, in part because, as you can tell, I have a face for radio, I have a voice for print, I'm a very good blogger. I'm not going on TikTok anytime soon to be our spokesperson. And you'll make similar calculations in your organization to say, our folks are here, they're not there. Let's play coordinatedly in all of the channels that we play.
What I really love about what you were describing about overarching goal and staff being rewarded based on overall result as opposed to meeting individual goal is that instead of pitting staff against each other, robbing Peter to pay Paul, it's much more aligned to build overall results for the organization.
Yeah, Voulet has that wonderful nonprofit Hunger Games about the struggle among organizations, but those same things happen within organizations as well. Direct mail acquired the donor, stewarded the donor, and the minute that they give a $10,000 gift, all of a sudden the major gift officer swoops in. Isn't it great if those two people can be working together to make that $10,000 into a $100,000 gift, knowing that that person is responsive, but also merits additional touch points.
Right. And the worst thing you can do is pull out that $10,000 donor from your direct mail if that's what's actually influencing their giving.
Yep. One of the programs that we have donor ambassadors that function as an extension of a direct response or a mid-level or major giving team that provide that cultivation for organizations that say, I have X number of major gift officers, not really ready to hire someone else, but having someone fill that stewardship layer so that my MGOs and my mid-level folks can really focus on those people who are ready to give the next gift. It's a wonderful program. And last year, we helped raise $100 million because of those ambassadors and the calls they were making and the upgrades they were able to do. So it's really exciting to be able to be involved in that.
So Nick, I wanted to ask you, kind of looking back at the past year, and we're still early enough in the year to allow time for planning and calibrating strategy. What are some ins and what are some outs when it comes to fundraising, direct response marketing, but also just broadly in nonprofit space?
Yes, I'll tackle that by channel. Note that out isn't ever dead. We've all seen so much virtual ink spilled on whether mail is dead and it's not, and those sorts of things. But there are some things that are really still arising, and others that we need to some extent resuscitate. So, for example, looking channel by channel, we see more programmatic and targeted media doing very well. So our programmatic buys on video and on digital had a 5.3x ROI on Giving Tuesday, and acquisition had positive ROI. We have had people in CTV programmatic having positive acquisition value. And I always say that if I get a time machine, first thing you have to do is kill Hitler. Like, I've read enough science fiction. It always works out well. Always kill Hitler. But the second thing I used to say I would do is I would go back in time with my mad hat on back when I was at Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and I would invest more in acquisition when they were making money in acquisition. Because if you're making money in acquisition, you're not spending enough on acquisition, because those donors should have a little bit of investment to have a long-term lifetime value that you're getting out of that. And so to see positive ROIs in acquisition and programmatic and CTV is really exciting. And it shows that even though the spend is going up significantly in the channel, there's still a lot more that can be done. Another one is, I think we're going to see more talking about omni-channel acquisition. We think about bucketed acquisition more than sometimes we get to the point that we're thinking without channels when someone becomes a donor, but that acquisition is a challenge. And so, for example, we launched the Simio Cloud email acquisition program, and that's been doing gangbusters in terms of taking the co-op model and that data and informing how people can get qualified leads in on the digital side. So year end, 3 organizations, one paid off in 5 days, another one paid off in 8 days, another one had positive ROI from kind of moment of acquisition. And so those are ones where, that can be scaled as well, because people think of it as, you're acquiring a digital donor. you're acquiring a donor. That can be someone who could be a male donor. That could be someone who upgrades to sustainer, that upgrades to major gift down the road. And so having those people inside is exciting. So those are a couple of the big ins. Omni-channel acquisition and text-in acquisition is another big one that's been growing significantly in that omni-channel framework. And then programmatic's been growing. In terms of the outs, and I have to give credit where credit is due. M&R just put out some results from their year-end giving season, and one of the things that they marked was in December a 40% year-over-year drop in organic traffic. Mm-hmm. And I think whatever your organization is feeling from organic traffic, the idea of white mail, whether it's the traditional white mail that someone just put it in an envelope and sent it to you, or the white mail of they came to our website and we don't know why, or they came to the website through a search engine, that is rapidly diminishing. That there has to be people need to be driven rather than assuming that if you build it, they will come and you sit back and Kevin Costner it out. And so one of the things that we talk about, and we have a white paper on this and are working to update it right now since the field is moving so quickly, but on AI's impact on search engine optimization, it's not just people going to ChatGPT for search, although it is that's a very small part of the market. It's that Google AI overviews and those sorts of things. That citation is not as sticky as the 10 blue links model. So the promise of being able to get traffic from that is pretty much gone. And so on your website, some of the things we counsel are answering real questions, offering real value, having interactivity on the site that brings someone in as a destination. And then overarchingly, it's about the brand work. So much happens at the top of the funnel that we don't see, that we don't always attribute, that is vital to and sometimes transparent to the bottom of the funnel. Know that when someone does DRTV ads, their digital results go up, their organic web traffic goes up, their major gifts go up. And it's because people have that greater awareness. And that greater awareness ties to all of those things. And if you have that awareness, that brand trust, you can weather a lot of, well, this channel's up, this channel's down. This is what Google has decided today.
I have to wonder with some of the declines in white mail, unattributed traffic to the website, are we attributing it better?
Yes, that's another part of it. We are also doing a better job of attributing. When you have omni-channel data systems, you can say, oh, this person that randomly came to the website didn't come randomly. They were on the acquisition mail piece that happened 2 months ago. Or they were targeted in this CTV ad buy. They didn't just randomly upgrade to sustainer.
Yeah.
And so we're doing that better job of attributing. So white mail in terms of donations is also going down for that reason, because we have or should have better viewpoints into how our donors are actually flowing through what used to be a funnel and is now a map of spaghetti.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Well, since we're on the subject, you mentioned AI and kind of the impact in search. I guess my question to you is, where is AI and artificial intelligence is helping fundraising, and what are some, if not pitfalls, things to look out for and exercise extreme caution?
Sure. So I do have to give a cheap plug at this point because my book, The Perfect Donor Communication, from a couple years ago, talks all about how you can use AI to customize your fundraising. And the thesis there is that there are so many variables that can be used in fundraising, both in the selection process and in the customization process, that will increase results that we can't hold them all in our heads.
Yeah.
We can, as humans, we can hold probably 4 variables in our heads at a time. And there are scores of variables that matter to whether someone's going to respond, whether it's, I'm a forest person or a ocean person, I'm left of center, right of center, all of those, where I live, those demographic variables, those lifestyle variables, behaviors, all of which can be factored in effectively to your fundraising. So that's a really exciting thing, but we lack the brains to be able to hold it all in at once and keep track of it. So AI can do with that customization, but it has to be human in the loop. And so what I described there is Steve Jobs had this great analogy where he said that humans, in terms of their energy for locomotion, are pretty much middle of the pack. But the most efficient animal in terms of their locomotion is a human with a bicycle. And so how do we get the bicycle? He said the computer is the bicycle of the mind. And that's really where we are with AI, that if you're using it, it can be the bicycle for your mind. And so one of the things that I talk about, not in the book, but more recently, is an easy way of thinking about this is the ha 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 model. It goes human AI, human AI, human AI. But on each end, you have a human. Mm-hmm. Humans stay in the loop on the front end to help guide strategy, to help define audiences. And then you go to an AI and say, help me research that. And you can get more information out than you would have in days, weeks, months, in some cases, researching it on your own. Okay, let me distill that down. Let me take out the hallucinations. Let me check this. Let me do all of the reading and find the things that matter. Okay, here's my base piece that I want to accomplish. AI can help me write it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go in and refine it. I'm going to take out it's not this, it's that. I'm going to take out 80% of the M dashes. I'm going to take out those things that are part of AI speech nowadays. I'm going to refine that down. Now, let me ask the AI to say, how can I customize this to a different type of audience? Here's a selection. Okay, now as I do the audience selection, which can happen through AI, I'm going to make sure that group A gets this, group B gets that. It's a change of a paragraph, but it makes a huge difference. And then as a human, I'm going to go through and check all of that. And an example that I use, going back to my MAD days, is MAD will never say accident, always say crash. And it's because, drunk driving isn't a whoopsie doodle. It's not an accident. Oops, I drove drunk and killed someone. It is a violent crime. And no matter how good the creative is that uses the word accident MAD will never use it. And so there has to be a human on the end. And that's a challenge for some of the platforms, like what we're seeing with Google and Meta and some of their automatic AI customization. It is a challenge to make sure that they can stay within the guardrails that you set up. And so making sure that you have that final H, that human in the loop, that makes sure that you're sticking to the brand standards. And also, I think this will help eliminate 80% of brand standards, the ones that are just simply preference and not actually matter. It'll go, well, if it works better, we'll use that. And it'll distill it down to, we don't say homeless, the homeless, we say people experiencing homelessness or the unhoused or something that talks about it being transitional state, not dealing with the actual person or those types of things. It's important that a human makes that call.
Yeah. I'm really interested with AI personalization in factors that are less tangible to us as humans, like things that we don't think will matter, but for whatever unknown reasons actually impact their reaction. So not something that's tangibly related to our mission or tangibly related, to demographics, but just some unknown factor that for whatever reason swings what they respond to.
Yeah, and the unknown factor part of this is a vital part of this, because we can put together the most wonderfully customized package that is out there to the absolute perfect person. And then the room could be too warm.
Right.
Like literally there is a study that says that donors give 37% more when they are in a 60-degree room than if they are in a 75-degree room. And that is never going to be something that we can control.
Right.
And one of the reasons I love working with our neuro fundraising lab is that idea of, we often think of ourselves as this rational being. And to some extent we are. But there's so much happening under the surface and so much about the stories that we tell ourselves and others that is just not actually what's going on. You may say, I donated to this because they have a great Charity Navigator rating and that letter was really compelling. And I know they're going to use my donation the way they said. And in reality, the picture on the letter reminded you of your fourth grade teacher who you really loved. And that never came to the front of your mind, but it happened in the back of your mind. And so we talked a little bit about white male. There's still always going to be cognitive white male that we can't account for.
You know, it's interesting you talk about the rooms. I think I read somewhere that cults like to keep their rooms chilly because people are more receptive to the message that's being imparted.
Oh, that does not bode well for me being from Wisconsin originally.
Yeah.
I'm apparently a susceptible guy.
I don't think I knew you were from Wisconsin, Nick, in all our years together.
Yes. So you were talking about bag as an indicator of a Midwesterner. Mine is, you can tell that I grew up around the Milwaukee area because I still say bubbler instead of water fountain. It is really the only place on earth within like I'm going to go 30-mile square radius that says bubbler.
That one is a unique one.
That one very specific.
So you talked a little bit about personalization and how do we optimize creative, but I've also seen you speak out. I think you had an article last year about different audiences and who we're not including in our efforts and how to reach them. Can you speak a little bit about these pockets, these demographics or different types of donors that we should be considering?
Yes, that's a great one. And I would say first, start considering the people who are on your file, not because of, but despite your messaging. There are going to be some people who are there who you don't think of as your ideal donor in all of the ways. You know, this is the wrong for us. One that I worked with a Catholic organization a few years ago where 91% of their donors were Catholic. And it's like, well, this 9% has to be just fascinating. And let's learn about that. But from a broader perspective, philanthropy today looks in the United States, looks like the United States what did in 1990, in the 1990s, in terms of racial and ethnic makeup. And shame on us as fundraisers, to some extent, for how we have allowed that to happen. And it's all understandable and justifiable practices that get us to a rougher place. So if you have an A/B test and A outperforms B, you throw B away and you run with A, and then you continue to refine. Understandable. But what often is happening there, not always, some packages bomb with everyone. Mm-hmm. Some communications bomb with everyone. But often what has happened there is that 60% of people would have preferred A and 40% of people would have preferred B. And so you gravitate toward the 60%, understandably. And you do that over and over again, and you start getting 60% of 60%, 60%. You get better and better at attracting and communicating with fewer and fewer people. And if you think about it in terms of a good kind of neutral example of this is if an organization uses premiums, then someone who isn't a premium person but is on their file despite that will get this constant diet of premiums and eventually will probably turn off. If you go to an acquisition list of non-premium people, that list is not going to perform. If you try to bring in non-premium donors, those donors won't perform because that's not what we're communicating. And so there's no good way of those non-premium people of getting in. Now, replace premium with man, woman, Black, Hispanic, white, whoever you are not attracting right now, and saying, does your communication stream customized to that person. So we worked with a large disease organization. They came in with 3 different people that they were testing to be their spokesperson. And the third person fell off. No one preferred the third person. And they walked out with 2 controls, not one. One spokesperson performed better among older people and whiter audiences. The other one performed better among younger people, Hispanic and Black audiences. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, they helped break down a little bit of that. They didn't say A beat B, they said A and B. And so the more that we can learn, the more that we can backtest and say, oh, there's this group that I want to attract. What has worked for them in the past? Because something has worked and it may not have been our control. That's vitally important. So that's on the creative side. On the audience side, what we do when we do RFM analysis or modeling based strictly on transactions is we say those who gave previously are most likely to give. And it's a good rule of thumb and an important input into all models, and it will kill you if it's all you use. Because who is more likely to have a 50-year giving history, a 49-year-old or a 90-year-old? And it's not a trick question.
Right.
Some people can't have that. And so when I say we locked in philanthropy to the America of the 90s, it's because we went to people who always had the opportunity to donate more and were being asked more, and we're getting the creative served to them that we talked about previously, who are showing up as the good donors. And so by bringing in other variables, smarter organizations are saying, I am willing to take even a little bit of investment to find people who don't look like my typical donor. I need to expand beyond my borders. And I've used racial and ethnic groups here because those are obviously the most pernicious if we're excluding people from philanthropy. But it could be cat people versus dog people. It could be any school where we've communicated one way because something sells with one audience, and we've been excluding the audience and the creative by how we select. Sorry, we've been excluding people by how we select our audience and our creative.
So Nick, kind of one final question I wanted to ask you. We're talking about these, it feels a lot like 3-dimensional chess, a lot of these variables and channels. But for many organizations, there's sort of this obvious tedious limitation of staff and resources to do experimenting and to really kind of have multiple streams and to have the technology to do this level of analysis. What is your one takeaway? What is one smart thing an average nonprofit marketer can be doing to improve their organization in the year ahead?
It is to think of constraints as opportunities. So you talk about the limitations of staff, and they are real, and they are, for a lot of organizations, not going anywhere. But we also know that the most creative solutions come with some sort of limitations. If you have an infinite amount of money, you're going to turn out a very bad creative campaign because you're not going to put the discipline into it. And so finding those partners that can be force multipliers for you. You don't have time to set up the donor response mechanisms that you'd like to set in place. I'd like to make sure that someone gets an email on day 7 and a mail piece thereafter, and that's something that your caging and response management vendor can do for you. You lost a major gift officer, you're not going to get them back. That's something that donor ambassadors can do for you. And now, Gretchen Littlefield, who's our CEO, often talks about us being in a golden age of marketing. And that was even before AI came into the picture. And now we are in this world where the original Microsoft vision was a computer on every desktop. And now with that computer, you can have an intern on every desktop, or honestly, an infinite number of interns trying to spell out Shakespeare. where you are using them for research, where you're using them for code, where you're using them for ideas, where you're using them for initial copy, that there are so many ways that you can multiply yourself and your thinking that give you great opportunity, whether it's you doing it yourself or you outsourcing it to a number of the great people out there. But taking those limitations and saying, I can go beyond this. I can't spend my money in this way, but there's always a way for, we talked about acquisition that turns a profit. No one is going to not fund acquisition that turns a profit. Everyone loves that. And so finding those things and holding on to them, using them as proof points for the future is what I really think any nonprofit can embrace too. And I'm really excited about the types of tools that we're going to be able to create together.
All right. Well, Nick, thank you so much. You've been such a wonderful guest. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
So good to talk to you, Olga.
Look forward to seeing you in person.
Look forward to seeing you in person as well. Thank you.